fire doesn't hurt anymore. Not really. After the first time, you learn that pain is just a signal. A frantic, screeching animal in the mind that eventually runs out of breath. By the third time, the flame is almost a comfort. It is a crucible, and I have always been the metal. The smell is the worst part, not of my own flesh, for I have transcended that, but of the Aesir themselves. It is the scent of wet fur, stale mead, and a cold, damp fear that no amount of hearth fire can warm. I can hear them through the roar of the wood smoke. I hear the heavy thud of Gungnir's butt against the stone floor. I hear the ragged, rhythmic breathing of men who think they have committed a murder only to realize they have performed a consecration.
Is she gone yet?
The voice is Thor's, a low rumble like the distant thunder. He wants me to be gone. He wants the world to be simple again, to be something he can hit until it breaks. But I will not be broken. I feel the spears first. They are still lodged in me, or rather, they are becoming part of me. The iron is melting, losing its bite, flowing into the gold that now pulses where my blood used to be. I am no longer a woman of simple bone and flesh. I am something new altogether. I shift. The ash is heavy, a gray shroud that tries to keep me down. But I am buoyant now. I rise, and the air is sucked towards me. The force of it causes the great door of the hall to shatter as if hit by a mighty gale. All of the light in the hall is extinguished until I am the only source. And then I come down. The air stills. The ash and smoldering embers on the floor around me clears, as if afraid to dirty my very feet. The air of the hall now hits my skin. I find it is not charred and weeping like before, but radiant. I am polished. I am as a mirror, and as I stand, I look down at myself, admiring my new form. I also see the Aesir reflected in my limbs. I see Odin, his one eye wide and trembling, realizing that he has traded his wisdom for a war he cannot win. This delights me. I step out. The stone floor cracks beneath my feet, the heat of my passage leaving a trail of glass. I look at them, these gods of order and stone, and I smile. It is the sort of smile that promises a toll that will be costly for their insolent transgressions. 3 times, I say. My voice soft, yet booming. It reverberates across the hall and carries a taunting majesty. All-Father, you have spent so much wood, so much breath, so much hate. Yet all you've managed to accomplish is to finish the work. I walk towards the hole where the great oak doors once trapped me. It seems so ridiculous now. They are in splinters across the floor. The men in the hall also have no hope in containing me again, and they know it. Even Tyr, the so-called bravest of them, pulls back his hands as if the mere sight of me might blister his soul. They are but frightened children now. Little boys, afraid they will be punished. They had called me Gulvig. when I walked in. The gold drunk, the lust of the veins. They thought that by burning the name they could keep the power. At the threshold I stop. The cold wind of the outside world hits me, but I do not shiver. I am the hearth now.
Golvig.
I look back over my shoulder, catching Odin's gaze.
We are not done here.
His voice cracks, and I can't help but laugh deeply. The hall rumbles and quakes with it. Cracks form and dust falls from the rafters. They are terrified that if I keep going like this, it will fall on their heads. But I can't help it. The gall of this silly man. His arrogance clearly knows no bounds. Gulvig died in your fire, I tell him, trying to regain my composure. She was a guest you treated poorly. She was a witch you couldn't handle. It is Hyr who leaves your wretched hall now, silly man. I reach up and wipe the last streak of soot from my cheek. Underneath the skin is flawless, glowing with a soft amber light. I feel the shift in the air, the pull of the sea, the scent of the fields, the distant call of the Vanir who wait for me with open arms and a crown of flowers to replace the crown of flames. You can keep your spears and your scorched hall, I say, my voice carrying on into the night. I am going where my cedar is loved, not feared. When you see me again, and you will, when your walls are crumbling and your hearts are in the very pits of despair, do not call for the witch. I step out naked into the raging snow, and where my feet touch the frozen earth, the first flowers of spring begin to burn through the ice. I'm Courtney.
And I'm Brandon. Welcome to the Time Travelers Club, and welcome to part 2 of our coverage on Freyja, the Norse goddess of love, magic, fertility, and femininity. Last time we talked more about her as an individual and what she represented more specifically. We talked about possible origins, like real life world origins, and through our discussion of all that, we touched upon some of the myths involving her. This week, however, we are going to talk about those stories in particular. Freyja, time and time again, is a reoccurring character in many of the Germanic and Norse myths. Though she doesn't always play a central role, and the roles she does play are sometimes mysterious and vague. But combined, we can really see a fully fleshed out and developed character. So, to start, let's dive into the origins of Freyja. When most people think of Norse mythology, they picture Thor, Odin, and Asgard. But as we talked about last time, Freyja's origin story starts in a completely different place, with a completely different tribe of gods. To understand Freyja's origins, we have to understand that she isn't originally one of the Aesir. That would be Odin and Thor's bunch over there. As we mentioned last time, she belongs to the Vanir, a separate older branch of deities associated with nature, fertility, wealth, magic, and the earth. They lived in a realm called Vanaheim, while the Aesir were all about order, law, and war. The Vanir were deeply tied to the unpredictable wild forces of nature, but also prosperity. So before we go into deep with the stories, there's one more piece of historical data we would like to cover. It has everything to do with the idea of the two tribes of gods, Aesir and the Vanir. There's a hypothesis out there that it may hint, and this is a big maybe, but with a lot of scientific and archaeological data backing it up, that this is a story, and many like it in Europe, that hint at a greater event deep within the past. So buckle up, everyone. We're about to take a side trip in the time machine. About 5,000 years ago, a group of people living on the vast grasslands north of the Black and Caspian Seas began to move. We don't know exactly why. Perhaps climate shifts, population pressure, and the simple logic of mobile pastoralism are all candidates. Maybe some kind of combination. But move they did, and the consequences were extraordinary. These were the Proto-Indo-Europeans, or PIE. That's right. It's pi.
It's pie.
It's pi. And just to be clear, and I feel like unfortunately we have to do this because a lot of pseudoscience associated with Norse and Germanic people. This is not a race in any modern sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they are not some race of blonde, blue-eyed supermen who they were not some race of blonde, blue-eyed supermen who were this far superior people, blah 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 blah. Okay.
Yep.
Just putting that up, right? Rather, they were a linguistic and cultural community that archaeologists associate primarily with the Yamnaya culture of the Pontic Caspian steppe. This would be roughly modern Ukraine and into southern Russia today. These were a semi nomadic, patriarchal, and warrior focused tribes who were predominantly herders who mastered something most of their contemporaries hadn't: the domesticated horse. So, like, to give you a rough idea, that's like when we look at like the Turkic people, not Turks, not Turkish. This would be like your Huns. This would be your Mongols, all the like the Uzbeks, all those different peoples, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're talking about here. So not like, and you know, if you look at people from like Turkey all the way to Mongolia and parts of China into Korea down south, like right, like we wouldn't be like, oh, those are all the same people, right? No.
Hell no, we wouldn't.
So right. So that's what we're looking at. It was that sort of society, right? And with that being said, this like domesticated horse combined with wheeled wagons and that warrior social structure built around mobile raiding, cattle wealth, they were extraordinarily well equipped to expand. I mean, essentially, they're bringing all their stuff with them wherever they go. They brought with them horses, advanced weaponry, and social structures centered around a warrior sovereign hierarchy. And expand they did in multiple waves in multiple directions. One branch pushed west into Europe, eventually giving rise to Celtic, Germanic, Italic, Baltic, and Slavic language families. Another pushed south to Anatolia, producing the Hittites. Another moved east, south into Iran and the Indian subcontinent, where their descendants composed of the Vedas. The linguistic fingerprints of this expansion are everywhere. Even the word father is in Sanskrit, Peter, or Latin, pater, or Greek, pater, in Old English, father, are all the same word, worn smooth by thousands of years of drift. This is where we hypothetically get all these sky daddies from, too. However, they found when they moved west into Europe, it wasn't completely empty land. I feel like this is a reoccurring theme, though, for Europeans in general. Just saying.
Indeed.
It's like, oh my God, there's people who live here. Let's totally genocide them. Hey, it's
Oh
like,
dear.
and anyone who's left can assimilate into us. Like, and then we'll appreciate them by calling them noble savage. Where's the sound familiar? Um,
I hate that it sounds so familiar.
yes. So Europe, not empty. It was a continent already full of people. These were the
Ta-da!
descendants. Yeah. These were the descendants of the first Neolithic farmers who had themselves migrated from Anatolia thousands of years earlier, and before them, the original hunter gatherer populations of the Ice Age. These farming societies had been building, planting, and developing their own rich religious and cultural traditions for millennia, as you would assume they would.
Mm-hmm.
You know? This is where we find a lot of those quote unquote Venus statues. It's not the politically correct term anymore, but like most people don't recognize the other term. So Venus statues, the ones where the ladies are real thick,
Where
like
everything is like super exaggerated. All of the sexual
correct.
organs are super exaggerated.
Yeah, but they also thick ladies. It's not just the
Indeed.
sex organs too. Like they chunky. They got a little dimple in their butt, like they just a thick girl.
As
They
they
thick
should.
bitches. Right. So, and we love that. But that's the culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they are called quote old European civilizations, but that's kind of like an outdated term. More commonly now, they're called the Danubian civilization. This would be our veneer archetype, by the way. Um, if you see where we're going with this,
Indeed.
these were the these were the indigenous Neolithic farming societies of Europe. Their culture was most likely more sedentary, focused on fertility, the earth, like the sea, the bounty of the sea. See, this is starting to sound familiar.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps they were more egalitarian and perhaps had natural focal structures, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily matriarchy, sometimes, but not necessarily, right?
Mm-hmm.
We see this, and I'll get to it in a second, but we kind of see this with the Minoans.
Mm-hmm.
The Minoans are a part of this old, quote unquote, old European civilization, right? And it's the Mycenaeans, the warlike ones. They're,
Mm-hmm.
in Troy and killing everybody. Those ones, that end up in quote unquote inheriting it all, but
Mm-hmm.
where they also adopted a lot of the Minoan culture with them. Yeah, those ones. Those are your Proto-Indo-Europeans.
Mm-hmm.
So that's actually like a really good example of like real world applications, like of this, and not just like myths. Um, it's also why we can understand some Mycenaean, but we do not know a lick of Minoan. Like it's the same alphabet, don't understand it. And it's because it's based off of these cultures that no longer exist. They were all wiped out for the most part. So, that being said, it is believed that these societies, unlike those of the Proto Indo European ones, were far less patriarchal, like I was saying, and the women have more prominent roles in society, especially in spiritual matters. We see this with, again, the Minoans in a lot
Mm-hmm.
of their art, where we see that women. It looks like they might be judging the bull competitions, which were a sacred right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So like it's been inferred that maybe they were in charge of these things. When we were talking about Dionysus last season and
Mm-hmm.
like the bee woman,
Yes.
you know, Ariadne of it all, which is funny because Ariadne ends up just being like this like passive and then like wife to Dionysus, but originally it may have been the other way around. Like where he was just
Yes.
this lovely supportive stay-at-home husband. like
We love a
which I love.
stay-at-home husband.
Correct. Um that's the culture we're talking about, right? And if it sounds a little like the veneer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, none of these people had languages that we can understand today, so it's hard to say for sure. And on top of that, of course, none of these are a monolith, right?
Mhm.
These are just general trends that seem to pop up, especially when we're looking at things like artwork. The pie expansion, I just love saying that. The pie.
The pie expands.
It's hard to take these, and it's like these like raider snaggled, probably. I like to imagine it was just like, bandits, just snaggletooth and mean, and it's just like, we're the pie gang.
I love your
So
imagination.
silly. It's just silly. And so the pie expansion did not erase these cultures, though, like I was kind of saying. It just collided with them. And out of that collision, something new was born. That collision, messy, violent, generational, and ultimately synthetic, may be exactly what the Germanic and Norse myths are trying to remember. I added much. Don't know why. Anyway, the intuition behind this theory is actually quite sound. Myths weren't just entertainment in the modern sense, they were the operating system of a pre literate culture. The way a community encoded its values, cosmology, social rules, and even history. But because they were oral and symbolic, history got compressed, dramatized, and personified. Real geopolitical tensions became divine feuds. Real cultural synthesis became pantheon mergers. What makes the Aesir and Vanir War particularly compelling that it's structurally anomalous. Most mythological conflicts end in a clear victory. The Olympians crushed the Titans, the Vedic Devas battling the Asuras. The Norse myths don't do that. In the It ends in a draw, a treaty, and, for lack of a better words, a merger. That's a weird narrative choice if you're just making up a story. It makes much more sense if you're encoding a real, quote unquote, real outcome, one where neither side had truly won. Maria Gimbutas was a Lithuanian archaeologist and anthropologist known for her research into Neolithic and Bronze Age cultures of Old Europe, and for her Kurgan hypothesis, which located these Proto Indo European homeland in the Pontic steppe. While she was polarizing, her core observation that the two very distinct archaeological cultures collide in Neolithic Europe has held up well, especially given the ancient DNA research over the last decade. Just to put this out there, I mean, we're talking about she was existing in like the 40s and the 50s doing a lot of this, right?
Mhm.
So honestly, pretty impressive that it's held water. Um, the old European cultures she identified show features that sharply distinguish them from what comes after the steppe migrations. Their iconography is dominated by female figurines, as we talked before, serpents, like the serpent lady from the Minoans.
Mhm.
Like it's just like a really good example. It's the one that keeps popping off the top of my head, but like they are in other cultures, yeah.
Yes.
Which you could almost make the point. This is just fanfic, but like Medusa, interesting that she becomes a
Indeed.
monster.
I
I don't
mean,
know.
comes from Elamia, comes from Mesopotamia. There's other things.
Yeah, just interesting.
Mhm.
But it's like interesting if because we know there's that direct evidence of like, oh, there was like Snake Lady goddess, and
Yes.
then with the Minoans. But then it's like after Minoan's dead, and you've got the Mycenaeans and the Dorians and all that. So you got Greeks, right? Those are the
Mhm.
descendants of those, Proto-Indo-Europeans. They go, ooh, snake ladies are bad.
Well, of
And you're
course,
like,
because
so it's
the
like,
snake has always been associated with feminine.
well, it's beyond that too. To me, a more like direct thought is just like, oh, those were those old gods, and that was old propaganda still at work.
Absolutely.
When you are because of the way Mycenaeans kind of just took over those Minoans. Sometimes a lot of the times it was very violent. There were instances where they coexisted and stuff, of course, but even under that lens, it was like with the Mycenaeans clearly in charge until the Minoans just kind of got absorbed, you know?
Yeah.
So then around, so anyway, back to this. um, these were all exactly the fertility repertoire you associate with the veneer. There's comparatively little evidence of a warrior aristocracy in their burial records as well. Around 3000 BCE, the Yamnaya expansion begins, and everything changes. Kurgan burials appear. Those are like these huge mounds, right? And inside are these individual graves with weapons, horses, markers of martial prestige.
Mm-hmm.
Ancient DNA studies confirmed that a massive genetic turnover occurred here. In some regions, steppe ancestry replaced up to 75% of the existing population within just a few centuries.
That's massive.
That is. That's crazy. I want to say like that's unbelievable, but you know, we live in the United States. Um,
Enough
and
said.
I'm sure a lot of the yeah, I'm sure there's some people here who could believe that. However, some mythologists like Georges Dumézil argue that the war isn't historical at all. Instead, it's a sociological metaphor. Dumézil's tripartite model, sovereignty, warfare, and fertility, as the three essential functions of Indo-European society, is a brilliant structural analysis. And he's right that the Aesir-Vanir dynamic maps onto it perfectly. But here's the interesting question. Why would the Indo-European societies need an external quote-unquote fertility class at all? Well, one compelling answer is that the fertility function was never originally theirs. It was absorbed from the peoples that they encountered and merged with. The triplicate, the tripartite structure may itself be a record of this synthesis, which means Dumézil's framework might actually support the historical reading rather than debunk it. The myth functions sociologically and preserves historical memory. These aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. I mean, like, so let's think about this for a minute, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're a nomadic steppe people, right? You're not agricultural, right?
Yeah.
And you go into these more settled areas and you're like, wow, this is great. We came here to conquer, but these people look pretty healthy. It looks pretty good, and they're not always having to fight for food and crap, right? Because they're growing it. We don't know how to do that. How that all works. It must be magic. We should keep some of these people around. Not all of them. We'll kill a lot of their leadership and their men and stuff, but we'll keep some of them. It's like
As they
you
do.
get right. So it's just one of those, like, it does kind of make sense, Um, and the specific mechanics of the peace settlement are also striking in the myth. It's not that they just stopped fighting. Njordr and Freyja, sorry. Njordr and Freyr go to Asgard, and Honir and Mimir go to Vanaheim. The exchange then goes slightly wrong. We're going to get into it. So I don't want to spoil it. There is some head preservation. That's where I'm going to leave it.
I mean, we did talk about it last time.
We're going to talk to the severed head, which also points to like these weird old European cultures, especially the more west you go into Europe, of like these cults of the severed head. And it's like, it's like a very old tradition. And you're like, oh, okay. So like, I wonder if that's an aspect of this old European thing too, but like we will never know, but it's fine. Um, it's just like weird. Like you don't see too many talking. Oh, but then there's this other connection I just thought of, right? I was about to say, you don't really see too many talking severed heads in like Greek and Roman myth, but you do with Orpheus. And where's Orpheus from? Thrace. And Thrace is like one of those like, it's like the further you're going in, the more you see this. It's just like, okay. I don't know. That's my tin hat theory. I don't know enough to make that like it's like, but anyway. Uh, that point is that like the idea that Odin has this just like talking severed head around, right? That he gets counsel from apparently. That detail is very strange if this is pure sociological allegory. It feels like this kind of specific awkward detail that survives because it records something real about how these negotiations actually work, because you have a lot of head helping cultures as well during this time. So that's something. Um and historically, hostage exchange as a peace sealing mechanism is extraordinarily well documented across ancient cultures. In Hittite treaties, Roman diplomacy, early Irish law. The logic, it I guess you could say it's both elegant and brutal. You give me someone you love, I give you someone I love, and now we're both incentivized not to restart the war.
And that it unfortunately makes sense. It
Yeah,
unfortunately does make sense.
and we'll get more into it. You know, there's more to it than just that. And it does tie into some of this, but we're gonna save that for later. The point is what this myth may be encoding is the memory of a real pattern of elite intermarriage, the absorption of foreign priests into a new community, the retention of local religious specialists and like agricultural ones after a conquest. When a steppe chieftain absorbed a Danubian farming community, keeping the local fertility priests and farmers was practical. You need people who know the planting rituals and can maintain the relationship with the land. The Vanir moving to Asgard and maybe a mythologized memory of exactly that, and especially in these colder northern climates, you can't fuck around and find out, Like
No.
one bad harvest, oh, you killed all the people who know how this shit works because they've been doing it for like 3,000 years.
Let's
Not
not murder them. Okay?
we do that in the modern society. So like it doesn't end well. So with that being said, Freya supposedly ends up teaching Odin Satyr. Magic is particularly suggestive here. Satyr is explicitly framed as originally Vanir magic, and it's associated with a passive, embodied trance state that conflicted with the Aesir's warrior ideal. The fact that Odin learns it anyway reads like the cultural memory of new arrivals adopting these shamanistic technologies of the people they encountered. So, what's the honest verdict of it all, right? Because we've kind of gone on a little bit of a tangent here when we promised you story time. Ultimately, without any witnesses or hard evidence, the theory can't ever be 100% proven. But it would be foolish just to dismiss it as just some compelling poetry. The convergence of archaeological evidence, ancient DNA, confirmation of a real population displacement, the structural anomaly of mythological truths, and the oddly realistic mechanisms of the hostage exchange, all of it together creates a genuinely persuasive circumstantial case. And potentially, what we might be looking at is the myth of the Aesir Vanir War may be, in fact, at least partially, the oldest news story in Northern European culture, and the piece that ended it, with all its awkward hostage swaps and preserved severed heads. Um,
Oh
maybe
dear.
the founding. I just, oh dear. acts like it was going so well.
Well, and then there was a severed head.
I mean, not too well. We're gonna get into it. But it's like they already had some O's. It's just
Indeed.
anyway. All this may be the founding moment of the civilization that eventually produced the Vikings and everyone downstream from there. That may not be a bad thing for a myth to remember.
So, with all of that context out of the way, let's finally get to story time. And like any good story, let's start with the parents. Freyja's parentage in particular is fascinating because it highlights the major cultural clashes between the two tribes of gods. Her father is Njord. He is described as the principal god of the Vanir. Unlike many other pantheons like Zeus, Marduk, Yahweh, and even Odin, his domain is not in the heavens. Instead, he is a deity of the sea, seafaring, wind, fishing, and immense wealth. However, if you are imagining someone like Poseidon, that would be erroneous. Unlike the Greek and Roman god of the sea, who was temperamental and rapey, to say the least.
Yeah, including Snake Lady Medusa.
Including Snake Lady Medusa. And, he would just as likely ruin you as he would help you. Njord is described to be calm, wise, and a benevolent god of the sea. He is described as a prince of men and lacks in malice and is super gentle. He is nurturing and easygoing, something that seemed to have passed on to his daughter. He is also wise and diplomatic, representing peace and stability. It is so refreshingly described as a devoted and loving father to both of his children. Perhaps that is why they seem so well adjusted.
Yeah, like I remember seeing, you just think about like, especially like what we just dealt with the Greeks
Indeed.
last season, and you're just like,
Mommy issues, daddy issues, new daddy.
yeah. I mean, daddy tried to literally ate your siblings after taking your mom, and then you had to be raised by someone else, come back, poison your dad to then reverse birth these kids. And then those siblings had to fight with you to kill him or castrate him or whatever. You're just like, there's a lot of castration too. You're like, yikes.
It's violence begets violence begets violence.
Yeah, it's like you can't exist if your parent exists. Like your children are a threat to you, and your parents can't be around if you want power.
Yes.
And you're not seeing that with the Norse myths at all. Even with the Aesir, you're really not. It's all very much like a brotherhood. Once you're in, you're tight.
Exactly.
Which is why Loki is kind of always portrayed as this like ultimate betrayal. Even in Marvel, you're like, brother, why? And you're like, Jesus Christ, how many times has this guy got literally stabbed in the back? Like, you're like, let it go, bro. It's toxic. But at least it comes from a good place. So we love a good dad.
Yes.
We love a dad who has an active role in his kids' lives. Good for him.
Indeed. So as for the mother, this is where things get interesting. According to the mythological texts, specifically in the Ynglinga saga, and hinted at in the poem Loxena, which we will discuss later, Freyja's mother is perhaps Njord's own sister. It appears that among the Vanir, marriages between siblings were completely normal and culturally accepted. However, the Aesir found this strictly taboo. So when Freyja and her family eventually moved to Asgard, Njord had to separate from his sister wife because the Aesir laws forbade incest. Because she didn't make the move to Asgard, Freyja's mother is never named in the surviving texts. At least that's how the stories have been passed down to us.
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I get it. You know, we're not supporters of the inbred so much.
No.
Other stuff's cool, but like, also, is it propaganda? You know, like,
Yeah, and that's what I'm feeling more of. Like this is trying to name them as like hippy dippy, free love, brother fucker kind of shit, and I'm just like, yeah, no,
right,
I
which is
don't think
interesting though, because
so.
then going back to the Greek of it all, like, they had no problem with it. They're all related.
Exactly.
Like your uncle daddies, your daddy uncles, your mommy uncles. It's just a
Ugh.
lot of uncles, like, who
Oh
are also
God,
you're married to. Like your uncle's also your nephew.
creepy.
You're like, what?
I'm my own grandpa. Like fucking.
It's just like, so I do find that interesting because, like, is that the proto Indo-European thing? But then you look at like the Romans, right? And like
Mm-hmm.
incest was not best. Um, to the point where they just try not to mention it in their mythology, but like it's a
Mm-hmm.
weaponized, like against Cleopatra, for example, right? Like in
Mm-hmm.
their laws, it's like, oh, and it's still weird because there is incest that happens, and it's like, oh, that's okay because they didn't understand genetics, but they at least understood that brothers and sisters should not be doing it.
Yes.
So I do find that detail interesting that Freya's mom may also be her aunt, but
Yes. So there is also a common misconception floating out there that sometimes, the giantess and winter goddess Skadi is considered Freya's mother. That is not the case. It is
mm-mm.
only much, much later that Skadi marries Njord, making her Freya's stepmama. But as we get into it in our Patreon episode on her, they have a famously disastrous, short lived marriage because Skadi loves the snowy mountains and Njord loves the sunny coast.
Which, I mean, I get it. Like,
Yeah. Sorry about
it
it.
ends amicably. It, yeah, I mean, it ends amicably enough. It's like not like the Greeks, where like you
Oh,
got
no.
like Zeus tying Freya to chairs and beating the shit out of her till she concedes. Like, ooh. Like it's
Exactly. Like that.
it's
It's
not like Hades abducting his niece. Like, mm.
exactly. It is not that. So Freya also has a twin brother named Freyr, often translated simply as Lord, while Freya means lady. And just like his sister, Freyr is a wildly popular Vanir deity associated with sunshine, fair weather, peace, and male fertility. The two of them were essentially the golden children of the Norse myth. Beautiful, incredibly powerful, and beloved by humanity. So, Freya's origin as a major player in Norse mythology really kicks off with the Aesir Vanir War. This was described as a brutal, world spanning conflict between the two tribes of gods. The Aesir fought with weapons and brute force, while the Vanir fought with devastating magic. Because Norse myths were passed down orally for centuries before Christian scholars like Snorri Sturluson finally wrote them down, Freya's origin has genuine gaps and mysteries. The biggest one centers on how the Aesir Vanir War actually started, and whether Freya herself was the cause. In the poem Völuspá, the war begins when a mysterious woman walks into Asgard. This is the moment primordial peace shattered and the gods went to war for the first time. A mysterious woman wandered into the hall of the Aesir. Her name, Gulvig, is usually translated as gold thirst or the power of gold. She wasn't like the Aesir. She moved through the world steeped in a strange, shimmering energy, and she was a master of Cedar, a fluid, potent form of magic capable of altering destiny itself. The Aesir were warriors and lawmakers. They found her gold obsession corrupting and her magic deeply threatening. so they decided to destroy her. What followed was one of the strangest scenes in all of Norse myth. They stabbed her with spears and threw her into the fire. She walked out. They threw her back in. She walked out again. A third time, and a third time she emerged from the ashes, glowing and untouched. In Norse logic, 3 represents a complete and absolute process. By surviving it, Gullveig proved that whatever she represented, gold, desire, a certain kind of power, was simply indestructible. When she came back the final time, she was no longer Gullveig. She took the name Hyr, the Bright One, and became a wandering Volva. I'm sorry, that's fucking hilarious.
I know.
Traveling from
Not full body.
house.
Not
I
that.
know.
Not the same as Fulvia the Volvia. No.
No.
Different.
No.
Still powerful, badass lady, but different.
Different. But traveling from house to house to perform Cedar for anyone who would have her. She became the patron of the very magic the Aesir feared. When the Vanir heard what they had done to her, they were furious.
As you would be.
Duh.
God damn, that was brutal.
They demanded wergild, blood money, or equal standing with the Aesir. The Aesir refused. Odin hurled his spear over the heads of the Vanir host, the ritualistic gesture that formally declared war, and the first conflict in the history of the world began. So this is great and all, but what does this have to do with our girl Freyja? Well, the connection many scholars make is that Gullveig and Hyr are both Freyja. For starters, Freyja cries tears of red gold. She is the undisputed master of cedar magic, and she is the most prominent female deity among the Vanir. If they're right, Freyja's story isn't simply that she was handed over as a peace hostage after the war. It means she traveled to Asgard on her own first, survived being burned alive 3 times, and personally ignited the first war in the world.
And I just want to point out, because this is the trajectory of our season, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not really a spoiler. We're going to talk about the witchcraft trials. You know, fascinating. If we're taking that face value of this being like maybe referencing a historical event, is it really hard to believe that these ancient people coming in and invading took this one, maybe one of the local women, accused her of being a witch and tried burning her and killing her?
No,
And
it
the
is
people
not
were
a stretch
furious
at
and it
all.
started a war? Like, it's like, oh, local head priestess, she has a lot of influence. We kill her, they'll all fold. And it's like, however it ends, I'm assuming she doesn't come back to life super hot and gold, but like, maybe.
Weirder
Maybe,
thing have
but
happened.
probably not. Probably. That's probably the mythological part, but like, because they wanted a happy ending. But like, I could see how they could also super piss off the locals to the point where they were maybe more peaceful, didn't want to fight, but they're like, you know what, fuck y'all. You just killed like our head priest, that priestess, like that's fucked up, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
Indeed.
and to me, of course, it's Freyja. Like, of course it is. Like, there's just how many other of these kind of ladies are just walking around? Like, it just seems wild.
I don't know. Or, as a thought, because Gullveig, I mean, it is definitely a different name, and we are never introduced to Freyja's mother or potentially like other aunts.
Yeah.
Possibilities.
I mean, it could be, but also you have to realize, I mean, there's so many titles, right? And even it could even be hinting at another tradition where people like have like a change of name ceremony when they become adults.
Yes.
It could be something like just as simple as that. She was Golvig, and then they tried to kill her, and Golvig died. It's it reads like a comic book, like
A little bit. A little
Um,
bit.
but yeah, I mean, I can see it. I can see it
Yeah.
for sure.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, the war was unlike anything the Nine Realms had seen. The Aesir relied on brute strength, weaponry, and the tactical minds of Odin and Tyr. On the other side, the Vanir used cedar to crumble walls and enchant the battlefield. The conflict was a seesaw. One day, the Vanir would use their magic to trample the fields of Asgard. The next, the Aesir would push the Vanir back to the borders of Vanaheim. It became clear that neither side could achieve total victory. The Aesir were too strong to stay down, and the Vanir were too magical to be conquered. Exhausted by the endless cycle of violence, the two sides met at a neutral location to negotiate a peace treaty. To seal the agreement, they performed an ancient ritual. Every god from both the Aesir and Vanir walked up to a communal vat and spat into it. Disgusting.
Gross.
Blech.
I'm just thinking
This.
like old timey West platoons, like,
Blech. No, thank you.
and that means Freyja's doing it too.
Gross. This mingled saliva was so potent with the divine essence of both tribes that they didn't want it to go to waste. They shaped the liquid into a man named Kvasir, the wisest being to ever live. His existence was the physical proof that the two tribes could create something beautiful together. I love that. It's disgusting, but I love that.
Yeah, I was like, the end was really poetic. I'm like, that's so pretty, and then it's spit. It's just
Blech.
like it's hot to you know. And just,
you see, there's
what?
something with saliva. My brain is just like, I'm gonna throw up.
Also, it's just telling us that like, if you spit and don't swallow, like,
oh my god, no!
this is why we have an explicit rating. Right there. Like, I mean, it made a baby. It made a man.
Yeah. I mean, it.
The
Oh
point
dear.
being, it's oh no, and like, no, there's a lot going on there.
Keep your dirty thoughts to yourself, sir.
No, I'm like, I've really stepped in it now. We may have to cut that one.
We might have to. Oh, Lord. To ensure that the peace would hold and that neither side would ever strike the first blow again, they agreed to do a hostage exchange. So this is where it gets weird, because our modern take of hostage taking is a very different form from that which was done in ancient Germany. It would be more accurate to say that this was the joining of the families, designed to make the two tribes inseparable. Perhaps at first it is exactly how we think it would be, where if the other side moved the wrong way, hostages could have been taken out. However, as time went on, it was actually more of like a Stockholm syndrome, but not as terrible as that. In essence, they would learn back and forth from each other and absorb each other's cultures until it created a new one. This is something reflected in the real world and can be found in both Norse writing and Anglo-Saxon ones. It was a joining of houses. One could even look at it as, rather than being a threat hanging over your loved ones' heads, in the name of peace, you trusted your enemy with the ones you loved, and they in turn did the same with you. In that case, it would be the ultimate form of diplomacy. So to Vanaheim, the Aesir sent Honir, a tall, handsome god who they claimed was a great leader, and Mimir, the wisest of the Aesir. And to Asgard, the Vanir sent their most beloved Njord, along with his two golden children, Freyr and Freyja. which, if you think about it, is pretty wild. Because if she really was Golvig Heather, then I'm sure Asgard didn't exactly have happy memories for her. On the other hand, it was a place where she transformed to a higher level of being, so maybe it wasn't that bad. Extremely hard to say.
I feel like the burning. I be That's why she has to have her own hall. She's like, I can't be
It's like
there. Like,
I can't. I'm gonna have to have my own because y'all shit. I'll wreck it again. I'll do it again.
I'll do it again.
I'll fucking do it again. In any case, as these two groups of deities crossed paths on the Bifrost, that's the Rainbow Bridge ramp thing.
I
The
love the
era,
rainbow riz. Like the rainbow
yes,
riz.
the Rainbow Bridge. The era of the two separate tribes ended, and the era of the united Norse pantheon began.
Also, this is Brandon who wrote the episode. He forgot to include the part where someone blinked wrong and Mimir did lose his head and he becomes apparently it's still magically talked and Odin just like kind of like kept it to chat with sometimes.
Yeah.
So there's that. Also, that's your guide in God of War, right? When you've got that talking head on your hip. That's Mimir.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, also I like the name Mimir. It's kind of like meow meow. So, just as an aside, while we usually view this as a political conflict, some scholars of Indo-European myth sees Goldvig's story as functional war. They argue it represents the historical merging of two different cultures: an invading warrior-focused society, the Aesir, and the indigenous agricultural-focused society, the Vanir. Goldvig wasn't just a woman, she was the catalyst that forced these two opposing ways of life to finally integrate. So, like, again, she could have been loosely based off a real person. I think we kind of mentioned this before, and like, I'm assuming she didn't come back gold.
I mean,
But
weirder things have
probably,
happened, as I said.
but I mean, maybe. But,
Possible.
so we kind of, it could be something like that. And when you view Golvi as through the lens of being an undercover Freyja, the story shifts from some random tragedy to a high-stakes psychological thriller. It changes the Aesir Vanir War from a misunderstanding to calculated cultural invasion. If we assume they are the same person, here are some of how like possible ways that the narrative can transform. The first is what we're going to call like the vanguard theory. That's kind of like what I'm running with. In this version, Freyja isn't a passive victim. She is a sort of vanguard. Before the Vanir ever marched their armies, they sent their most powerful asset, Freyja, to scout the enemy and weaken their social fabric. She enters Asgard not as a goddess, but a provocateur by introducing the Aesir to Goldthirst and Satyr. She exposes the cracks in their supposedly orderly society, and she forces them to confront their own greed and their fear of the feminine, magical, and unpredictable.
That's interesting, but that feels like a very much a rewrite.
It is. Like, I mean, these are all, and like, or none, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it was like a historical, like, person, like, maybe. Like, people are messy. Um, but that's the tough part, right?
Absolutely.
If Golvig, again, in this, so a second idea is that the burning was a power demonstration, right? If Golvig is Freyja, then the triple burning isn't just like a failed execution, it's a sort of theological flex on part of the Vanir. The Aesir were masters of the spear and sword, so brute physical force. Sharp thingies, pointy thingies go stab, stab.
Mm-hmm.
Nuance to it.
No, it's very phallic.
But by surviving fire 3 times and the stabby thingies that they're so reliant on,
Mm-hmm.
she's effectively saying, like, your weapons mean nothing to us. it could be head games, in that sense. Like she's proving that the Vanir possess a power over life, death, and rebirth that the Aesir just cannot touch. Um, and it makes the Aesir look desperate and outmatched before the war even officially begins. It's again like you could look at it as like, do you really want to mess with us? And you know, like it either way, even if they choose to fight, it could be psychological, like shake up.
It definitely could.
Shaking up your enemy's confidence, never a bad thing. Or maybe the hope is like they'll see this and just come to the table peacefully, which they did not. But you a third idea is that like the hider persona is kind of like a weapon. As we said before, after the fire, she becomes hider, and this is Freyja in disguise potentially. She's essentially radicalizing the world against the Aesir. She travels among the common people, the giants, teaching them the magic of the Aesir tried to suppress. Again, it's almost that at that point, it's like, look what they tried to do to me,
Look what they
and I
tried to
survived.
hide. Look what they
They
tried to
tried to hide it.
suppress.
They wanted to deny
Mm-hmm.
you this,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like that's again, it could be like a longer game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then essentially like training all these people to then, because it's like maybe it's that it's like you stall the Aesir who are like, do we really want to fuck with them?
Yeah.
And while they're doing that, you train a bunch of people quick, like, and get them on your side. So
Yeah.
that's potential. And so we'll go kind of like into the irony of this whole hostage situation, because this could be like a long, long game, right? This is where when the truce is called, right, and the hostage exchange happens, the Aesir think they're getting a fresh start with like this beautiful new goddess, but if she was Goldvig, the joke's on them. They're like, oh no, it's that lady again. Damn it.
Oh, we got the
Like, think
bitch. What
about
the
that.
fuck?
Because if Goldvig really is Freyja, yeah, don't think that crossed their minds that, oh yeah, that's that lady we burnt. They didn't just forget her. I know she forgets where her husband goes every year, but they probably didn't forget her. And that whole thing where they tried to kill her 3 times and it just didn't work. Feel like that's something you remember. Um,
Yeah, I would assume.
and then the idea that she walks back into the room where she was stabbed and burned. But this time she is welcomed with honors. It's like, see, if you had just done this the first time, you know, in this kind of scenario, she's conquered Asgard not with swords, but by becoming indispensable. You can't afford to kill her and do all that crazy again. And she's sitting at the right hand of Odin and teaches him the very magic that they were once trying to kill her for practicing. It's like, oh, sure, I'll teach you, but it's on my terms, right? Like, you need me, don't get it twisted. Um,
Yes.
so it just, I kind of like this because it does flip the script rather than her just being, here, let's offer you my pretty daughter and myself because we're just, and it like it doesn't that doesn't make sense. Like if it was a draw, why are you just doing that, right? And why is she just cool with it? It makes more sense if she's Goldvig, and then
Correct.
it's more complicated, but makes way more sense. You're like, oh, because people are messy and like it are more they're not two dimensional like that.
No.
So this infiltrator narrative actually mirrors several historical and mythological tropes. For instance, in the 30 Years' War, or we kind of talked about this a little bit last time. Like the Roman Republic's expansion, you often see like soft power cultures like Greece being militarily conquered by a hard power culture like Rome, which is funny because Greece used to be one of the hard powered ones too, but whatever. Um, Only for the conquered culture, quote, conquered, to effectively take over the minds and arts of the conquerors. Um, and we saw that with Rome, right?
Yes.
Like you didn't want to be too Greek, but like they also liked a lot of their stuff, so it's like pure Latin culture was lost pretty quickly once they started expanding. Um, you know, they might not take the. It's not like, and this is kind of what we're seeing a little bit here.
Hmm.
Like they're not like, and then they came in and just there was a truce, and the invading people were like, "We'll just do everything you do." No, like, but they also didn't like, they couldn't afford to wipe them all out either.
Yeah.
So if Golvik is Freyja, she's essentially the captive Greece of the Norse world. Maybe conquered in name because it helps their little egos, but really the true master of the house in practice. Probably why she gets the first pick of all those souls for her hall as well. Like, otherwise, that's weird, right?
It is.
She's just a hostage. Like, why are we giving her everything just because she hot? Like that, and it's never even explained as that.
No, the thing is,
It's
it's
just like
not
that's just the way it
explained.
is, and you're like, but why?
None of it's explained. That's why the theories
Unless
are
she's Goldmund.
so good. Unless she's Golvig.
Because then it's, oh yeah, we can't kill her. Like, uh, um,
Because
and
because
she's here, guys.
honestly, Golvig or potentially Freyja, they strike me more as like a primordial than a.
Mhm.
I almost want to put like the Aesir like on par with the Olympians.
Well, and you could almost argue like the Vanir versus like the Titans are because they were those peoples were fully conquered, like we talked about earlier.
Yes.
The Titans get to be bad guys, except a couple. Except a
Except
couple.
a couple. I mean, Hecate is technically a Titan.
Right. You got like some of the female ones get to stay on and be cool.
Yeah.
Helios is kind of like a weird exception. But like the rest of them, like especially the dude ones, are either killed or thrown into Tartarus
Mm-hmm.
or like holding up the entire sky, not the world. Atlas doesn't hold up the world, he holds up the sky. It's so
Yes.
yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things like it usually doesn't end well for them. But it's also kind of interesting because when you think about like the primordial gods of Greece even, right? What gender are they? Women.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the ones who get to stay. Gaia. We don't fuck around with Nyx. We
We
don't fuck
don't
around
fuck
with
around with Nyx.
No, ma'am.
I mean,
And we don't
fuck
talk
even
about her a lot.
Styx.
We don't fuck around and find out either. No, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Rhea, well, kind of, it's like I think like that's one of
Rhea
those
kind of
ones
got absorbed into Demeter a little bit.
a little bit, but you also could look at like Hera, and then also like was
Yes.
she doing that different from Gaia? Like
Yes.
it's like one of those ones like I could see how she kind of just phased out a little bit, but
Yes.
like not all the myths, but like yeah, but
Mm-hmm.
like for the most part, a lot of these women, especially the old ones, the Earth Mothers, the Night Mothers, they hint at this older culture, and those are
They
the
do.
ones we don't mess around with.
No, we don't fuck with
Um,
them. Well,
but we may
like
not
we
talk
fuck
about
with
them too
them.
much.
We fuck with them, but we don't fuck with them.
But like, and sure, they exist. Like we acknowledge their presence. We're not, but also like you kind of see they don't want to talk about them too much because we don't want to give them too much power.
Yes.
It's like we acknowledge that these are gods; they should be venerated and respected. But also look at these ones that we brought to you. Like, like, so, you know, like, and like that they're cool, just being kind of like either retired or like just not even like backup because it's not that, but it's like they are benevolent to help ours, and they don't want to. We're very thankful that they don't want to fuck shit up. Yeah, like,
Correct.
but like you're not building temples to Nyx. You're not building temples for Gaia, right?
You don't
It's like
have to. The world is their temple. Like that's the
mm,
thing.
right. I mean, we could process it that way, but for like these conquering people, right? And you're
Correct.
kind of seeing that a little bit with the Aesir, right?
Yes.
Like those are the ones who get temples and stuff, right? Versus like it's some Vanir do too, but
Hmm.
especially Freya. But doesn't that say something?
Yes.
Because unlike these cultures, like the Greeks, who those Proto-Indo Europeans really conquered, right?
Hmm.
Full. They couldn't quite do that in like the interior of Europe.
No.
There had to be compromise, and this is what this whole story might be hinting at. So,
Correct.
um, very heady stuff. I'm sorry.
For
but I think we're done.
what?
It's just, it can be a lot. Some people just want fun story time. It's just one of those things that's fascinating. It's a good reminder that myths aren't just fun time stories, and they're not even sometimes just telling like a moral. It's not just always a morality tale. It could be a hint at something much bigger, whether
Absolutely.
it be a real historical event through a weird lens, like you have to really kind of like, oh, or it could be a, like, again, like a reflection of like morality and like value systems, but or both. But yeah,
Mhm.
so
Okay, let's move on from all this deep, heady war stuff and get on with the more fun story. Let's start with Otar, because we love the story of a devoted man who appreciates his mistress. As the story goes, Otar was a Norse nobleman, proud, passionate, and deeply, almost obsessively, faithful to Freyja. While other men might offer a goat or a handful of grain at the goddess's shrine and call it a day, Otar went much, much further than that. He built his own altar out of stone. Not a little roadside offering stone, but a proper, serious place of worship. And he sacrificed on it so frequently, so zealously, and with such enormous offerings that the heat of the fires eventually fused and glazed the stone until it looked like glass.
that's intense.
That is some intense fire.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like an enormous, sacred, fire polished jewel sitting in the landscape, testifying to just how much this one man loved his goddess. And
No,
Freya
good for him.
noticed. And she noticed. Of course, she noticed. She is the goddess of love and desire, yes, but also of war, magic, and fate, and she pays attention to the hearts of the little mortals. Otar's heart was wide open and pointed entirely at her. The ancient Norse understood worship as a relationship, a contract almost. You give to us, we give to you. And Otar had been giving and giving and giving without asking for anything in return. That kind of pure, generous devotion moved her deeply, and she loved him for it. Not in a distant, clinical, divine way. She genuinely, warmly cared for this man. So when trouble found him, she was already paying attention.
And just to clarify, right, we're not talking about the lerv, right? Like, it's, how would you explain this, right? Just so that way
Mhm.
we can clear the air on some of that.
Okay, the way that I would explain it is almost like a parent.
Yeah, like
Or like
like,
a really like a close aunt
yeah, I was
where
just
they're,
saying like
yeah,
auntie for
yeah,
sure.
definite auntie. It has nothing to do with romance. And I know
Yes.
in the English language, unfortunately, we only really have a few words for like affections of any kind, and love unfortunately takes on a litany of meanings. But when we are talking about how Freya loved this man, she was
Hmm.
devoted back to him in a different way as a
Yeah,
divine
and
being. It's more of like a parent or an aunt that is sitting there and will guide you and watch over you, making
yeah,
sure that you're good. It has nothing to do with romance and sex. It has nothing
no,
to
and
do with
like,
that.
it's something to point out because yes, she is a goddess of those things in the patriarchy of it all. It's a lot of the times twisted. Things can be twisted that way. It's something we experience with our own culture sometimes, that like,
Hmm.
oh, a woman was just really nice to this guy and showered him with some affection, and then he took it the wrong way, and that's not
Yep.
what the story sounds like it's doing. But like, it's just something like, oh, what, and she, well, if she doesn't love him like a god divine way where it's just pure platonic, it must be romantic. And it's like, no, no, nope. Just want to clarify that. Nope, she's doing this because she loves him. Like, she's like, you are like the best guy. I'm gonna help you out. You're my ride or die. but not in a way where we fuck.
Exactly. Like,
And
Brandon, I
he's
love
cool with
you.
it.
Brandon, I love you. I'm not gonna fuck
Correct.
you. Okay.
Correct.
So
I don't, and I won't either. I promise.
so like, yes, ride or die, but we don't have to have sex. That's okay.
Right.
So
And that's where I just wanted to clear that up because she does do an awful lot for this man. And I love a
absolutely.
story where he's just like, I really just, hate to be an inconvenience. And she's like, ask less. Like, you're cool.
She's like, Bix,
Like, we,
you
we're,
could
we're
never
cool fam.
inconvenience me.
Like, we're
Never.
cool fam. And he's like, right.
All right. So the trouble came in the form of a man named Agantir. The two men had fallen into a bitter dispute over ancestry and lineage, which in the Norse world was not a trivial thing at all. Your family tree wasn't just personal history. It was the foundation of your legal standing, your claim to land, your right to call yourself a man of status, all of that. To have
Mm-hmm.
a noble or more noble lineage than your opponent was in certain contexts to win. Full stop. Like, if
Mm-hmm.
you had more nobility in your blood, you had a nobler standing, you just win. They have no
And
say.
to be fair, this is something maybe hard for modern people to really fully grasp. But I mean, this is something that's a very recent development in,
Mm-hmm.
if it's especially Western history. But like that was important right up until like the turn of the 19th, going into the 20th century. Like
Mm-hmm.
World War I kind of really shattered all that. It was on its way out, but
Absolutely.
it definitely shattered there. So like if you're a history person, this is not a surprise. But it could be very like, really they were willing to go through all this trouble over family names. Mm.
It
But
seems silly, but you don't get to label importance to the people of that day with our
mhm.
modern context.
It's why bastards were such a big deal. Why quote
Indeed.
unquote legitimacy was, and why you would have these wars where it's like, well, I should have this land because I'm the nephew, and it's like, no, I should have this land because I'm the cousin. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, and then they have to literally sit down like, who has more claims, like literal titles, and like, okay, based off of this weird web, it's right.
Yeah.
And that was something that was a big deal and literally shaped entire nations up until like World War I.
Yeah.
So
So Otar and Agantir had made a wager or entered some kind of a formal legal contest where the man who could prove the more distinguished ancestry would carry the day. Agantir was confident. Otar needed help. The problem was that in the kind of deep ancestral knowledge required to win this contest, going back not just a few generations, but many, stretching back to legendary kings and mythic heroes, it wasn't the kind of thing you could just look up. That knowledge lived in a very specific, very old, very powerful type of mind. And one of those minds belonged to a giantess called Hindla. Freyja thought it over. Hindla was ancient, cantankerous, and famously uncooperative. She's a bitch.
yeah,
She lived alone in a cave, surrounded by her wolves, and she had absolutely no interest in doing favors for the Aesir gods, let alone for a random mortal man whose love life she cared nothing about. If Freyja simply
I'm,
rode up and said, "Hello, please recite the full heroic genealogy of my devoted worshipper so he can win a legal dispute," Hindalua would probably just laugh and go back to sleep.
I mean, I don't blame her.
Yeah.
That seems fair. Like
Yeah, it's just like, excuse you? For
like
what?
why? Like right? It's like imagine if someone like I kind of get it and like oh like well she should just be nice and help out. I'm like I mean maybe
Mm,
not. And we can be okay with that. And also, like, I could also understand why she doesn't want to get involved in this Aesir god nonsense. Like, she's
Correct.
like, y'all are drama. Like, just leave me alone.
Y'all
I
are
live
drama.
in the country for a reason.
Leave me alone. Let me be the witch at the edge of the woods.
Thank
Begone.
you. And let me enjoy my doggos. Thank you.
Exactly. Now, Freya would have to be clever. And Freya, when she wants to be, is very, very clever. So she came to Otar and told him what she needed to do and what it would require of him. And then she worked her magic. Freyja was the mistress of a particular and powerful kind of sorcery called Aesir, a deep, fate-weaving magic concerned with transformation, prophecy, and the hidden nature of things. And she knew how to reach into the shape of a living creature and change it. She looked at Otar, this earnest, fire-building, glass-making, devoted man, and she began to work. The change didn't happen all at once. It rippled through him. His skin thickened and bristled. His body dropped forward, weight shifting onto all four limbs as his hands and feet reshaped themselves into hard, cloven hooves. His spine curved, his neck shortened. His jaw pushed forward and widened. His eyes changed last, darkening, dropping to the sides of his broad new head, seeing the world in a wide, flat way that animals do.
That was some body horror, if
That
I've
was,
ever heard it.
oh, absolutely. Here's the thing. You wrote it. You wrote it.
I know.
I
I
am
know I did.
I am going to really like drive home that horror part.
That's, to be fair, it's true. This isn't a Cinderella bibbity bobbity boo
No.
transformation here. This would be like if that scene had been more realistic, like when they turned the horses into men. Like in
Yes, this is almost like what you would see in a horror movie when somebody is shape-shifting into a werewolf.
Mm-hmm.
So when it was done, Otar was gone, and in his place stood a magnificent boar. Large, gleaming, with bristles that caught the light like hammered gold. This was no ordinary pig. He was radiant, almost unnatural in his beauty. He looked like a god's animal, because that was exactly what he now was. Because here is the key detail. Freyja already had a boar. Her own sacred beloved boar was named Hildisvini, which translates roughly as battle pig, and she rode him across the sky as one of her divine mounts. By turning Otar into this creature, she was essentially slipping him into the identity of her own sacred animal. He would travel with her as her boar, hidden in plain sight, and Hyndla, if Freyja played her cards right, would never know the difference. Otar, now four-legged and golden bristled, waited. He couldn't speak. He couldn't plan. He had placed himself entirely in Freyja's hands, and all he could do was trust her. For a man who had spent years building fires in her honor, perhaps that came naturally enough.
I mean, good for him. I don't know how. I mean, to be fair, I would be able to complain. So,
Yeah.
it's also giving South Park like Bear Man Pig.
Yeah, a little bit Bear Man Pig. I can see it. I can see it.
You know, are we waiting now for Al Gore to come on in and like shoot up the place? Like,
Oh
oh
no.
no. So, Freyja mounted Hildsvini, Otar, because it's actually Otar, and rode through the cold Norse sky towards the mountains where Hyndla had made her home. Oh, that's cool. He can fly. So, like, oh, that's nice.
When pigs fly.
So we get Yeah, when pigs fly. That's great. The cave was dark and deep. I've heard that before. The kind
Indeed.
of place, the kind of,
Sorry.
come on, get it together.
We're children. It's fine.
The kind of place that feels old in a way that the stone shouldn't, as if the darkness inside predated the world around it. Hindla had been there a long time. Freyja arrived at the cave entrance and called out cheerfully, as if this was an entirely normal social visit. She told Hindla to wake up, to rouse herself from sleep, to come out and ride with her. God, we all have that friend. And you're like, girl, like, you want to go to the club? Come on. And you're like, you gave me no notice, and it is 11:30, and I have to be to work at 6. I'm like, no. Everyone loves that friend. Anyway, so
Everyone loves that friend, but also wants to strangle that friend. It's okay.
and she's like, we should go to Valhalla. But literally, let's go to the club. And she's and then she's like, also, Daddy Odin wants to see us both. So that would have I've been like, maybe not. Like, I was on board. No, I'm not. There's an old guy. Don't care. There was a long silence from inside that cave. Eventually, Hindla emerged. Hindla was old, sharp, and deeply suspicious. She took one look at Freyja standing there with her gleaming golden boar and her bright smile, and she just narrowed her eyes. She wasn't entirely fooled. She looked at the boar, which is Otar, crouching there in his animal shape, and something ancient in her recognized that that creature was not quite what it appeared to be. She said with the bluntness of someone who had lived long enough not to bother with tact. We all know that one. Honestly, I kind of usually like those people. You know, those like the old cantankerous mean ladies. You know, those tend to be the ones. They're not Karens. You know, like they're just like one of those like leave me alone. You know, they've had a hard life and they get it. You know. So she said that the boar Freyja was riding was her lover. That Otar was right there, transformed and hiding in plain sight. She's like, honestly, you know, if I'm going to make an Avatar reference, which this whole story is coming off Avatar, like The Last Airbender, it's like he's trying to find his past lives, aka, you know, you know, lineage, and then it's like he needs like a guru to help him out, or like, you know, that's Freyja, and then you've got this is Toph. This is Toph, who in the Avatar series does end up living in a cave, who wants to just be left alone, and she's cantankerous and mean, and there's blunt, and she's like, "Well, you're never gonna get along if you got that poison in you, all that metal rattling around in you." And she's like, "What are you talking about?" You know, and so like this is giving the same vibe. Like, that's clearly not a pig. That's a man you transformed into a pig. But Freyja didn't flinch. She kept her expression light, even a little amused, and denied it smoothly. What pig? Or what man? I don't know what you're talking about. You're crazy. Anyway, that was just Hildsfini, her boar. Duh. Gaslighting. Freyja.
The gaslighting.
You're wrong. That's my pig.
That's just a
You're wrong.
It's fine. You're wrong.
But anyway, how are you? She was imagining things and like because gaslighting always works. Like, gaslighting's not going to work on this old lady. I'm sorry. She's just seen too much. Like, okay, Hildsvini, how are you today? So Hindla grumbled, and she was not fully convinced, but she also couldn't prove it. The transformation was complete, and Freyja's composure was flawless. So she let it go for now. She called for her own mount, a great gray wolf that padded out of the cave's darkness and stood waiting. And she swung herself up onto its back. Oh, she's Princess Mononoke. I
She is a
love
little bit
that.
Princess Mononoke, yeah.
No, this is Princess Mononoke if she never met that dude. And she gets to live in the forest with her wolf mom. This is it. She just
I
ages into this.
love.
Yes.
Yes. Because we don't need
Yes.
no
I knew I
man.
liked her. Yes. I love this. To be fair, Mononoke's man was nice. He was a good guy.
He
You
was
know,
a good guy. You're right.
he
You are
wanted to
absolutely
protect the
right.
forest. He wanted everyone to live in harmony and not, like, kill each other. And he was willing to leave his own community for it because he didn't want to put all the other people at risk, including the young girls. And I'm like, he's just
Mm-hmm.
kind of also like, Mononoke, you don't have to give up everything for me. I like you for who you are, and we love that. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
giving real Otar energy. Anyway, so, so once they were riding, Freyja dropped the pretense of going to Valhalla almost immediately. Oh, she's already there's already holes in her story. I'm sure she'll never catch on. Um, she had what she needed: Hyndla's company and attention, and now she got to the real point. She needed Otar's lineage. That guy who's totally not there.
Mm-hmm.
I thought you said we were going to Valhalla. No, 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 no. I didn't say that.
The
Um,
gaslighting.
yeah. Um, but she's gonna also need all of it, all of this lineage. Give it all, because going back as far as Hyndla's ancient memory could reach, right? Hyndla was annoyed. I would be too. So, like, whatever.
Indeed.
But she was also, in her way, proud of her knowledge. That also sounds like me. It's hard to have a vast store of ancient genealogical information and not want, on some level, to demonstrate it. And Freyja could be very persuasive. So Hyndla began to speak. What follows was extraordinary. Name after name, generation after generation, given real Avatar energy. Hyndla pulled the thread of Otar's ancestry out of the deep past and laid it out. His father, his father's father, because that's all we care about are the dudes, and back and back and back. Through minor kings and great kings, through legendary warriors, through figures connected to the great heroic dynasties of the Norse world. She connected him to Sigurd the Dragon Slayer, to the Volsung line, to ancient kings whose names still carried weight and power. She connected him ultimately to the gods themselves, because the great heroes of the Norse world often had divine blood somewhere in the chain. I mean, like, yeah, because they all spit into a bucket. Remember when they
You're
did that?
gross. I don't want to remember that. No, I don't.
I mean, I just thought
I
I'd
do
bring it up
not. Look,
just so we don't forget. So Otar standing there. I'm actually sorry, that's not Otar. Remember
it's
on
Hildisvini.
on right, and Hildisvini standing there on four golden hooves could hear every word, but he was a bore. Freya, I feel like we have found a hole in your plan. You made him a literal pig. Like, he literally can't. He no thoughts. Um, um, and also those hooves. He couldn't take notes or write any of this down.
Yeah.
And this was a big list. Like,
Yeah. When Hyndla finally finished, when the last name had been spoken and the last generation traced, Freya made her final request. She asked Hyndla to prepare a drink of memory ale, a magical brew that would allow Otar to retain everything he had just heard.
yeah, why does Hildisvini need this memory ale for some other guy? It's not
Yeah,
Otar.
if it's not Otar. To carry it perfectly inside him so that when he stood before Gantir and the assembled judges, he could recite his lineage without a single error or omission. This was too much for Hyndla. She had already done far more than she wanted to. She was furious. She could see exactly how she'd been maneuvered, how she could see the whole elegant shape of Freya's scheme laid out before her, and she hated it.
I mean, is it elegant though? Is it though? Like it's barely a
No,
scheme
it's
because
barely.
because like I want you to also we're not going to Valhalla where you're talking about I never said that. And thanks for telling me this entire lineage of for Otar, even though I told you this is not Otar, can you also make him a memory ale to remember Otar's lineage? But it's not Otar.
Mm.
Okay. Sorry.
Hyndla decided in her rage that if she had to give Otar a drink, she would give him one. But it would be laced with poison. Let the
Oh,
goddess's precious mortal choke on it.
oh, Hinbot. That's a bit
Oh,
much. That's
that's
a
a
bit
bit
much,
much.
girl.
Yeah,
Like,
well, immortals playing with mortals is something that we see time and time again.
I'm just like, girl, you might be overreacting.
A little bit,
Like you
a
could
little bit.
just say no.
Freyja saw what she was doing immediately. The warmth left Freyja's manner entirely. She summoned fire, real, roaring, divine fire, and sent it blazing around Hyndla's cave, surrounding the giantess in a ring of flames that threatened to close in. She told Hyndla, with quiet and absolute seriousness, that she would burn if she didn't produce the real, untainted memory ale. Hyndla,
Giving
surrounded by
give
fire. Go for it.
I was gonna say, get no offense, giving real Goldvig energy here.
A little
Just
bit.
saying, if not Goldvig, why using Goldvig fire? Like,
If not Golvig, why Golvig shaped?
right. Anyway,
Hyndla, surrounded by fire, furious and outmaneuvered and with no good options left, gave in. She prepared the ale, the true brew, uncontaminated, potent with its ancient mnemonic magic, and Otar drank it down. Every name settled into him, every generation, every lineage, every connection to kings and heroes and gods, all of it locked inside of him, perfectly preserved, ready to be spoken aloud when the moment came. Freyja rode Otar back from the mountains, and when they were safely away from Hyndla's cave, and her wolves, and her grudges, she transformed him back. The bristles softened. The hooves became hands and feet again. The broad animal jaw pulled back into a human face. Otar stood once more as himself. A man, blinking, full of ancient names and royal blood and the memory of what it felt like to be a boor in the service of a goddess who loved him. He went to face Engantir, armed with everything he needed. The dispute was settled in his favor. And Freyja, somewhere, was satisfied. Her devoted man had been cared for. The fires he had built on that glass-smooth altar had been answered, repaid in the most elaborate and clever way imaginable. In the Norse world, that was the ideal. A goddess who genuinely showed up for the people who showed up for her. Otar had given everything he had, and Freyja had given it right back. And that is where we will leave it for today.
yeah, because this kind of became a three-parter. I I did a lot of this in my free time over a phone, and you don't have page counts on your phone. And then I put it all together and pulled it up on my laptop. I'm like, oh my, this is 28 pages of content.
Yes, that's a lot. When our normal
And
is like what, 12?
yeah, like we try to keep it around 12. Sometimes it goes to 14, sometimes it's a little less. It just depends on the topic we're talking about, but there's no way that 28 was ever going to fit within like an hour and a half to 2 hour span. Like we've been roughly around there, you know.
Yeah.
And so like I'm like, no. We're not going to do that to ourselves. We're not going to do that to you. So we'll leave you here for next time. Next time we will discuss a few more stories. And a lot of them are weird. they're definitely weird. If you thought this was kind of kooky and weird, buckle up. We've got Thor and Drag. We have Freyja crying because she farts in bed. We have Loki living his best brony life and taking it way too far. Um,
It
Stay
it
tuned.
gets good, y'all. It gets good.
It gets good, y'all. So, um, on that note, if you like what you heard today, please give us a positive review on whatever platform you listen to this podcast on. It really does go a long way for us to appease the algorithm gods and get this suggested to others just like you. Just like kind of like a little tangent off of the normal spiel for your all's attention. Like we are starting to notice a big kind of uptick in followers, and that's great. If literally just a handful of you guys could just, if you're listening, say like on Spotify or whatever, if you can give us like a 5-star review or whatever, that'd be great. Because it really does help them suggest it to other people, right?
Yes.
And we're definitely growing, and I love seeing it. Like it's honestly pretty insane. Like I think, what did I tell you last night? It was 51 downloads in Vietnam for some reason.
Yeah, the Vietnam one, I'm scratching my head a little bit. Appreciative always, but scratching
Well,
my
yeah,
head a little bit.
we really like you, whoever you are. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm also like, I hope like you're not learning too many bad words from us. You know,
I'm
but
sorry in advance.
yeah, please know that a lot of this is going to be used in casual conversation. But
Hmm.
we appreciate you.
Very much so.
So if English is not your first language, but yeah, also person or peoples in Vietnam who are downloading us, you can reach out to us on our email. We would love to hear from you.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah. But anyway, giving us that review, helps us connect to our fellow history nerds. And the more we can build up this community, we can keep the show going.
Also, we have a Patreon where you can hang out with us and get exclusive content, like videos where we might try to make some ancient recipes, talk about topics that couldn't fit into the main arcs of the podcast, and just generally being batshit and dumpster fires, all for the price of a latte per month. Research materials and books cost a lot of money, and it takes a lot of time for us to create this show, so anything that you can help us provide would be a huge help.
And we can't wait to see you guys again next week. And as always, thanks for listening. Bye for now.
Bye, guys.